Good evening, students. As I have told you, I'll be again sharing you all the resources that I've used in the project, and I'll be showing you the step-by-step demo that how we have executed the process, so that in future, if you have any queries, you could watch this video and execute it once again. So this is the project is about a three-tier deployment application deployment. So if you talk about a three-tier application comes with a front end, a back end, and connecting to a DB, right? Connecting to a DB. So the architecture is this, that if we type, like if we input anything to the front end, it connects to the back end, and then it connects to the database. Then the database fetches some query from the backend, and from the backend the front end is displayed. So something like if you search for something in Google, something like coffee, the coffee query is now sent back to the backend, and the backend search for the related queries in the database. Based on the database, the image or some related documents are fetched to the backend. Then the front end is rendered with the display searches. Okay, this is what the real-time application works. So now we got to know what are we going to do. Now the thing is that, now how do we do it? How do we start from it? Either we start for the front end, then go to back end, or then we go to DB, or else we start from the database, we go to the back end, and we go to the front end. So the approach all in the real time is going to work with the backside approach. We first configure our database, then configure our backend, and then configure our front end. Fine? Okay. Now the approach is clear. So as the workshop is based on DevOps and automation, so we won't be dealing much with the application development. So we do have all our applications, like I do have code, I'll share with you in the GitHub repositories. So you could directly fetch the code from the GitHub and directly use it. But the main application of DevOps is to make the application run live in the servers. Fine. We even discussed about AWS, the cloud. How do we deploy our applications in AWS? For this project, we just need two things. We need an EC2 instance, and we need RDS. So RDS stands for relational database services, and EC2 stands for elastic cloud compute, which gives you a server to connect. Fine. So now we are starting with the backend. So now we are starting with the database. So first we need to configure our database. Fine. Configure the database. So in order to configure the database, we need a database first. So how do we get a database? We will get it from AWS cloud. So everyone, please log into your AWS account. Now I am choosing server from London. You can choose whatever server, whatever regional location you wanted to choose. It works with every region. Fine. Now in the search box, type for RDS. RDS is a service which is offered by AWS in order to create databases. Fine. Okay. Now before going to RDS, I'll be discussing about two things. So what are the main important parts of a database? So database consists of three things. Mainly, in order to connect to a database, we will be having three things. First, the endpoint. The endpoint means the connectivity, where do we need to connect to the database. After connecting to the database, you should be knowing the username of the database and the password of the database. So mainly these three things are essential for every database. Without these things, these three things, we can't do anything. So my application, I will be choosing MySQL in order to run our database. So you could choose anything, but MySQL would quietly be simple. So I'll be choosing MySQL. So in the database, in the RDS session, go to database and click on create database. So now this will ask you to create what kind of database you want to create. So I'll be choosing MySQL. If you want to choose what kind of database you want, you could choose. And is it asking it even do have versions? Do you want MySQL community version or engine and so on? You can even choose the SQL versions based on it. And if you want the extended support, something like if the new version comes, you want to update it without any other like without any permissions, you could directly enable it. So as we want to use free tier, so we'll be using free tier such that no cost is made on us. So this single AZ instance means it only has primary instance. I'll be discussing this later. What is standby study and what is AZ2, AZ1, AZ3 and so on. So give your database a name in order to search your database. If you are multiple databases, in order to find your database uniquely, you need to give your name. So now here comes the credentials. As I have told you, you need to have your username, right? So have your username here. So simply I am giving my username as root, and then come down, it will ask you to generate your password. So I am generating my password. Even you generate your password and save it in a place. Once if you create the password and if you forget it, you have no other way to retrieve it. You have to delete the database and create a new database itself. So now here you will be having multiple instances. So these are enabled, these are disabled, like only two are enabled cause I have chosen free tier. If you want to have multiple things, like if you want to have 32 GB of RAM and 8 CPUs, then you need to go for the paid version. And if you want the free version, it is offering us 2 CPUs and 1 GB of RAM. For the sample project of us, we could enable any one of it. So I am choosing db.t3 micro. And then here you could choose, do you want SSD, GPT2, GPT3, GPT stands for general purpose, GPT3 and so on. And the allocated storage, how much GB you want to store, you can store. So you have a range of 6 TB to store. And if you open the additional storages, here comes the auto scaling part. So what do you mean by auto scaling means? Let me explain you what does auto scaling means. So as we have, what do you mean by scalability? Like scalability means based on our requirements it will increase. So auto scaling means, so generally we have allocated 20 GB of database. Fine, 20 GB has been allocated in our case. In case our data, like generally we insert data into our database, right? We have tables, we have rows and columns, we insert data into it. So the data is always get increased in the database. So there might be a situation that the space of the database might get might fill, right? Might fill out. So in that case, as data is very important, we should we should be the data should always be redundant, and the data is very important. So in case if the data fills out, and if we try to insert a new data into it, the database get failure, right? Failure. So if the database get failure, there might be loss of data in our database. So what are all the data is important. It might be, if it is a database of any banks, the data of the transactions might get missed, so that will get the bank into chaos. So that's the reason database failure should not happen in any case. So if the 20 GB fills out, the database get failure in our case. So there is this option called as enable auto scaling, right? Auto scaling in the sense, if the data in the database is getting filled out automatically, the AWS creates a new database. So now you could say, like, how does the database, like, how does the AWS knows how much GB of data, how much GB of sized database should be created? So here you could see maximum storage threshold. So maximum storage threshold means you are giving the permission to create 1000 GB of database. So if the data of 20 GB gets filled, a new database of 1000 GB is created, and whatever the data that we are inserting into it will redirect to the new database. Or else, if I say simply, the database of 20 GB is going to be modified with 1000 GB plus or rest 20 GB. So that is 1020 GB. So this is the concept of auto scaling in database. Are everyone clear? Okay, fine. Now for my case, I am not going to give that much data, so I am disabling it. But that is an important option. So now here you have public access. So public access in the sense, AWS internally have things, right? So AWS do have EC2, AWS do have RDS, relational database services, AWS do have load balancers, AWS do have the auto scaling, and so on. So what do you mean by public access in the sense, the people outside the AWS, that means the trafficking outside AWS, that means the people who doesn't belongs to AWS, that means common people, or your internet is outside, right? So until and unless you don't allow public access, you cannot connect to RDS. In order to connect your RDS from outside, public access should be must. If you want to connect, if you disable the public access, there is even a way to connect it, such that you could, as EC2 and RDS should be configured in the same network in the security groups, then you could say RDS should be connected with EC2, and there is an option in the above that connect to an EC2 compute resource. If you enable this option, then only the EC2 could be connected, EC2 instance could be connected to the RDS. If you don't enable it, you cannot directly connect it. So if you want, you can enable it or you can disable it. For my case, I am running it from the outside, so if I want, I could even enable it, right? So if I enable it, it will directly ask which instance you want to connect, but I will be configuring it manually, so I am not giving it right now. Now if you go for down, in the additional configurations, you could see the port of database MySQL is 3306, and if you go down, you could see additional monitoring settings. For the time being, we don't need to configure anything. In the additional configurations, you could give your initial database name. So initially I am giving my database name as user underscore details. Fine. If you want to give any parameters, and here enable automated backups. See, backups play a major role. Why I am saying is that, so every day in every day backups are made such that the data is stored everywhere. So if you have a server, if you have a database 1, in case for today, like today's date is 23rd March 2025. So in the end of the day, the database will make a backup. So in case if there is a failure tomorrow, see, we might never go when our database is going to fail. There might be some SQL injection attacks and so on. If they attack on 24th March 2025 on our database 1, the whole data might move out. We don't have any clues of it. So that's the reason, if we have our backup, we could directly fetch the data of 23rd March. But the catch is that the data that has been created on 24th, that means after the backup, whatever the data has been created will be deleted. Like we can't get it back. We could only have the backup and we could only make it to real, but we can't get the data. But it is even fine, right? Rather than deleting all my data, I could even have my data of yesterday's, so that I could I could not lose much more information about it. So that's the reason backups must be enabled in real time. For time being, I am not creating any real time application, so I am disabling it, and that's it. Your application is fine. Now if you your database is ready. Now if you click on create database, our database will be created. It will take time to configure. Fine. So our database is ready. Fine. So it until and unless you could see the status as running, you can't do anything to connect it. Okay. Now meanwhile we'll come to the front end part. I mean the backend part and front end part. So as we know, the database is created. Fine. Now the first part is done. Again we need to configure the database, right? We need to configure the database such that we need to create rows and columns. Okay. Now coming to our application, what is inside application is that I do have a simple Angular front end. So Angular front end do have, if I explain you, Angular front end do have two options: users and create. Two options. If we click on users, it will display the table of users that are available. And if you want to create a new user, if you click on create, it will ask you to enter the details of the new user. It will ask you the details to create new users, and if it click on create, by providing all the details, a new tuple or new data will be inserted into the rows of table, into the data of users. Fine. So this is the front end part. Now coming to the back end part, what I will be doing is, in the back end I will be taking a Java Spring Boot backend. So I'll connect the front end with my Java Spring Boot application. The Java Spring Boot doesn't much I didn't give much functionality to it. If you want to give, and if you are good with Java Spring Boot, you could give the backend. The main part of the backend in my application is to connect with database. That means writing the queries to it, connecting to the database, and retrieving the data and retrieve the data and insert the data. This is my two, like retrieving the data in the sense getting it from database to the backend, and inserting is from backend to the database. Fine. So if I talk about the whole application now, if I click on users, it will go to the backend. It will retrieve the users that are present in the database to the front end. Fine. If we click on create, and if we provide all the details and click on create, the data is stored. The data is now brought into the backend. Now it is sent into DB by running some query, and in the same way, it will goes to the front end and it will rendered into the users part. Fine. This is our main application. This is our 3-tier sample application that we are going to do. But the main focus for this project is to help you to understand the DevOps part. Mainly, we need to configure everything in terms of Docker, right? Fine. So our database is ready to create. Fine. Now, meanwhile, in order to have our front end and back end, we need to create 2 EC2 instances. So I'll be naming the first part with front end. I will be naming the front end development in the front end and the back end with the back end. Fine. Now, after that, I'll be configuring it with T2 medium, both with the T2 medium, and I'll be I will create it. Okay. First, coming to it, search for EC2. Coming to EC2. Now go to instances. I'll create 2 instances. I'll launch an instance. So first instance name is front end. So choose Amazon Linux, which is more flexible. Now here the instance type must be T2 medium. Fine. So if you don't have any key pair, create one. If you do have a key pair, select the existing key pair. Fine. Now it is asking for you to configure your storage. Now I think 8 GB or else will give 20 GB. No, will give 15 GB. Fine. 15 GB might be enough for it. So I am giving 15 GB of data, and if you go for advanced details, it's asking for any new thing. So now here you could see, if you shut down your instance, it means that your instance will be stopped. That is the reason why you would even give terminate. In the sense, if you shut down your EC2 instance, if you give terminate, it will directly get terminated. So there will be a lot of things that you need to give, and you could even configure everything if you wanted to do, and so on. Fine. Okay. Now I am launching the instance. Now after this, our front end instance would be launched, and again we need to launch our backend instance. You don't need to worry about it. I have terminated these two. It's fine. In your case, it might won't be visible, but for now I have gave front end which is running, but until and unless you don't get checks, you can't do anything. So the front end is now created. Now I am launching the backend. So I'll name my server as backend. I'll choose Amazon Linux. and if I go down, I'll choose T2 medium. Now use 3-tier key or something that you want to name, and in the configurations section I'm giving 15 GB and I'm launching the instance. Fine. Now you do have your, now if I talk about your physical things, your database is created, your front-end server is created, your backend server is also created. Fine. Now you do have all your things ready physically. Now as we have learned Docker, we are not going to we are not going to configure everything in our front end or back end. We take a Docker container in our local, we configure everything in our containers, and we deploy our Docker containers in front end and back end. Fine. This is the main process for it. So front end is done, back end is done, and DB is done. So now coming to the configurations of DB. Now let's see, is our RDS created or not. It will be created. We have gave a lot of time for it. Fine. Go to databases. Now you could see our database is available. Fine. Okay. Now click on the database. Now you could see the endpoint, the username and password you should be knowing. Fine. And you do have, if you have give your database name, even that is fine. Now in order to connect from your local, there is a software called as DBEaver. DBEaver. Now open this DBEaver. Then from this application you could directly connect to your database. Fine. Okay. Now the database DBEaver is also there. Now go to databases, click on new database connection. Choose your database. In my case it's MySQL. I'm choosing MySQL. I'm going for the next. Okay. There, here you could see server host. In the server host, delete everything, copy your endpoint and paste your endpoint. Fine. Now if you have created database, use the same database name, user details. Fine. Now in my case, my username and passwords are like I do have my username as root and my password, I'm entering my password here. Fine. Now click on finish. Now you could see your database here. If you click on database, if the file comes, actually database do have the related files. So if the files are displayed here, then only you could connect. But now it won't display since we need to configure some of the security parts. It says connection timed out because we didn't give our inbound rules. So now go to your database. In the now in the connectivity and security, go to security groups. Until and unless you allow your inbound rules, you can't do anything. So in my security groups, I'll edit my inbound rules, and here I need to add a port, all traffic, custom, and so on, and save the rules. In case if you don't have it, enable the groups. Fine. Now if you don't have any rule custom IPv4 0.0.0.0/0, then add a new rule, add something like all traffic and all custom anywhere IPv4 and save the rules. In case mine I do have it, so that's why I'm getting error. If you don't have, then create them again. Now if you make the connection now, the connection will proceed now. So now go to databases. Now open your database. Before that open dbriver. Okay, 1 second. dbriver. So now open db identifier. Now copy your endpoints. This time we should establish our connection. So you go to databases, create new database. I'm choosing MySQL. MySQL in the server host. Copy your database. If you have any database, I do have database name user underscore details. Then give your password. Now click on finish. Now if you click on user details, now you should see some files related to the database. So once have a look. Now if you see it tick mark and all the files here, that means your database is now configured. Your database is now connected. In order to configure your database, click on SQL editor and open SQL scripts. Fine. Now you could see your database. Okay. Now if you want to see how many databases are there, the query should be select star from DB, I guess. I don't know the perfect query, but you could work with it. Work with it. Databases, I guess. Fine. Don't know much about this. No, I don't know, but okay. So you could even directly chat GPT it. It will show you what are the queries to show your databases. I think show databases. You know, to show your databases. Show database. Is this the query? Might be this should work. Alright, let's ask ChatGPT. Okay. How to see available databases. You could directly it's in case of it's show databases itself, but I don't know why it didn't work. It's databases fine. Now if you run it, it will show you what are the databases that are available. In the last we have created user underscore details, so that's the reason we do have a database user underscore details. Fine. So in order to create rows and columns based on our requirement, I have initially wrote the script. So now if you go and check my WhatsApp, I have sent you the WhatsApp link, the queries that are available. So you could directly copy and paste them. You don't need to type each and every single query that are available. Okay. Now you could say that you do have established your connection, right? Fine. So if you go, you could see the queries that are available. So this is the query, right? This is the query. I'm copying the query. Directly pasting that into my DB viewer. So I'm pasting it. I'm running the whole query, right? Control A and running the whole query. Now I got some error stating something else. Create table users. What is this error? Let's even ChatGPT it. sometimes there might be the version issues. See, your MySQL service doesn't have this query, like doesn't have this syntax, so that's the reason. So based on it, we'll copy it and we'll ask ChatGPT about what are the version that supports this. So let's ask it. It will show you some answer. So if you want the same query, you directly go copy this. It will work. So like copy it, paste it, and run it. Now you could see, right, it has created successfully table. In order to view how, the table, there's a query called like in order to view the data, select star from users. Is it users? Right, users, that's it, not user details, users. Now if we run this query, your table should be empty, right? We got it. We do have 4 rows. It is ID, email, first name and last name. Fine, that's it. So we could directly say that our database is now created and we have configured the database. Fine. Now coming to the second part, the database is now configured. Fine, the database is configured. Fine. Now we need to configure our front-end server and as well as our backend server. Front-end and backend. So let's start with the backend. So we'll be doing our work in Docker and directly pushing them into our server where we have created. So now open Docker. So I do have terminal directly, so I could execute my queries there itself. In your case, even CMD works. If you have Docker terminal, use Docker terminal. So let me check. How do I check my running containers? Docker PS. So I could see my Docker has one container. How do I remove? How do I stop it? Docker stop. Now how do I see my container which is running? Docker PS, right? Docker PS hyphen AQ. A for all, A for all, Q for Q, in the sense we will only get the Docker container ID. That's it. Now if we do, all the Docker containers that are running will be stopped. Fine. Now after stopping the Docker containers, we need to remove our containers, right? So in order to remove all the containers that are running in the background, Docker arrow. Now with this query, we could see that all our Docker containers will be removed. If I do Docker PS, I don't have any containers. If I do Docker PS -a, I don't have any containers. In order to see your Docker images, that's it. We do have a lot of images, but still we'll start from the base image and we'll build our project. So in order to have so I'll be using Ubuntu image for running my backend. So Docker run -it. I'll be running with the ports 8080, so 80:8080, and I'm using port 8080 also, and the port 33062, and I'll be running it with the image Ubuntu. Fine. And if I run it, I will get a Docker image created. I'll get a Docker container created. Fine. Now we are into the Docker container, right? Now we are inside the Docker container. If I do, so my project is in my GitHub, right? github.com/tanison. From there, go to 3-tier backend, clone the repository. How do we clone it? Get the URL from it from HTTPS and type git. First initially see the git is available or not. So if the git is not available, you need to install git. In order to install git, apt install git. So if it says unable to locate package, you need to refresh your package. So in order to refresh it, apt update. So apt update will refresh the packages that are available. It will take few seconds to refresh its packages. Once it's done, if you execute the same command apt install git, you will see the git will be installed. Fine. Now it will download git and install the git. Okay. It will take few time to install, and if you're done, that's it. Fine. If you do git, you should see all these things. Now how do we clone it? So before that, we'll shift to the repository of home. If you do pwd, should see your home. Fine. If you do ls, you do have a user Ubuntu. Fine. We'll go into Ubuntu and run it. If you do ls, fine. There are no files and directories. Now git clone the repository name. We'll paste it here. Now it will clone. That's it. If you do ls, you'll have 3-tier backend. How do you get inside it? 3-tier backend. Fine. If you do ls, the files that are available will be displayed. Now in backend, okay. Now let's get to our theory part. Now, as I told you, the front end will connect to backend. The backend needs to connect to DB, and the DB will connect to the backend, and the backend will connect to the front end. Front end, backend, DB. Fine. So in order to configure your database with your backend, we need to have something, right? We need to give the connection to it. Now tell me, how do we connect to a database? What are the requirements? We need to have endpoint, we need to have username, we need to have password given to the backend, so that the backend will connect to the database. Fine. So that is why we need to configure our backend with all these requirements. So if you go to 3-tier, in the application, we need to configure it. So in the path of source, main, resources, if you do ls, there is a file named application.properties. You have to edit it. If you do cat application.properties, you could see something like this. So this is the place where you need to insert your URL, your username, and your password. So this must be changed. Until and unless if you don't change it, your backend won't connect to your DB, and your username username and password too. So in order to change it, we do have vi. Let's see vi is available or not. Now in this case, vi is not available. In order to install vi, you need to do apt install vim. Now vim takes some time to install. Let's see. Now you could see vim is installing. It is unpacking and downloading and so on. Now choose your region as Asia, which is number 5. Choose your time zone as 44, which is Kolkata. Fine. Done. Now if you do vi application.properties, you could see this, right? Until and unless you don't press the button I, you couldn't see anything to insert. If you even type something, there will be lot of problems. So enter I. Now in the bottom you could see insert, then only you could edit it. Fine. Okay. Now delete till double slashes. That's it. Now go back to your RDS, copy your endpoint and directly paste here. Fine. Okay. Fine. Now configure your username and password as per your requirements. Now in order to save it, press escape and :WQ exclamation. You could see, right? :WQ exclamation and press enter. That's it. Now your backend is now configured. Fine. How do you get out of the container? In order to get out of the container, we need to press Control PQ. Control PQ. Once Control PQ. Now you got out of your container. Fine. Now if you see root at the rate 89bf is your container ID. If you want to verify it, what are the running containers, you could see Docker PS. This is the only one container that is available. You could see, right, 8bf and so on. Fine. Now the Docker container is running in the background. Fine. Docker container is running. Docker container is running. How do you get inside a Docker container? Docker exec -it, your container name followed by /bin/bash, right? Fine. Now let's see, is our application really working or not? So how do I get inside it? Docker exec -it space, copy your container ID, copy your container ID, copy your container ID, paste it, followed by /bin/bash. Fine. You are into it. Now where you have saved? We have saved in cd home ubuntu in 3 tier. We are here. If you do ls, you could see our project, right? Fine. As this is, as I told you, the backend requires Java, and in order to build it we need Maven. If you do mvn, it says Maven not installed. How do you install Maven? Apt install maven. If you do enter, it will directly install Maven as well as its dependencies. If you now see here, Java is dependent with Maven, so you could see all the applications with Java. So new packages will be installed with this Maven. What are the new packages that are available? All the Java related things. You could see common lib CLI Java and so on. Java is also installed with it. So if I do yes and enter, Java and all the dependencies that are needed for Maven will be installed. Fine. Now you could see it will take some time to install Maven. It will actually install all the things that need for Java, that needs to run Maven. So we are not worried about anything. Okay. Now have a look. It's progressing. It will take some time. Fine. Now if you do mvn-version, it says Maven version is 3.8.7 and the Java version is 21.06. See, Java, we didn't install Java yet, but it got installed with Maven. Fine. Now if you do mvn spring hyphen run spring hyphen boot run, you could see our application will be running. So before that, it will download all the resources and it will run. Let's have some time. It is downloading the resources that are available. Now you could see the backend is running fine. Okay, let's see. Yep, fine. Now if you do Control C, you could see build successful. After doing Control C, you could see build successful. Fine. That means your backend is running fine. Okay. Now how do I get out of container? Control PQ. You are now out of your container. Fine. Now you have your work done in your Docker container. Docker container. In Docker container, you cloned your backend. You cloned your backend. Then you configured it. After configuration with your DB details, you have built it. Maven, you have used Maven, right? Maven is a build tool. Maven is a build tool. And finally, you got success, right? Build got success. Fine. All you have done this in your Docker container, right? Docker container. And with the Docker container named 8bf and so on. 8bf, right? Fine. How do you save it? In order to save your Docker container into image, we do have a command called as docker commit, right? Now the whole saved container is now converted into image. So how do you convert it? In order to convert it, docker commit space copy the docker id, copy the docker id, and paste it. Fine. Now before that, there is a cache in Docker that now you could directly save it, something like docker commit with your docker id and some random name, something like backend. Fine. But how do I send my Docker image? How do I send my Docker image into server? Definitely we need to have Docker Hub, right? We need to have Docker Hub. So if I save my image into Docker Hub, that means everyone in the world could access it by pulling. So if I do docker pull and my image name, it will be pulled. So you need to definitely save it to Docker Hub. But in order to save it into Docker Hub, there is a rule that you need to create a repository. So if I go to Docker Hub, I need to create a new repository. Until and unless I don't create a repository, I am not allowed to do anything. So I am going to Docker Hub. I need to create a repository. So 1 second, it will take some time to create a repository. I am creating a new repository, something like project proj backend, projbe project backend, and creating it. So now you have to use the same name. For your image. That is the cache here. So I do have docker commit and my instance that is running, same name followed by some code, some tag, something like I am giving v1 as my tag. So if I do, it will save in my local. Fine. It will be saved as local image. Now after the commit is made, you will get some encryption SHA-256 encryption code, and okay, now you got something, right? Now if you do docker images, you could see something like tan is on / project backend vi. Now in order to send your image to the Docker Hub, there is a command called as docker push your repository name followed by your username / your repository name project backend : the tag. Now if you do, it will say it will take some time, but it said request access to be resourced is denied. So if you get access denied, use sudo. Sudo will help you to push into the repository. So if you see, it is pushing your image. It will say it will take some time to push. So meanwhile, what we'll do is we'll install Docker in both of our servers. If you go to EC2, we'll install Docker here. Go to our instances. We do have frontend and backend instance. Right. Now click on frontend, click on connect and connect it with EC2 instant connect. Now the first command that you would be let me wait. Okay, now the first command you would be typing is yum install sudo yum install docker. If you do docker sudo yum install docker, docker will be now installed in it. Click on buy, it will install docker. Meanwhile, you could even go to the backend server also, connect it, here also same the site, type the same sudo yum install docker. It will take some time and install docker too. Now here docker is installed, but if you type docker it will show you errors. Okay, yeah, like if you type few commands are not accepted here, because until and unless you enable docker and start it, you can't access docker fully. In order to access it, you need to type sudo systemctl enable docker. Now do sudo systemctl start docker. Fine. Now if you do docker images, now it says that permission denied, but before it said cannot connect, but now it said permission denied. If the permission is denied, now we'll be using sudo, that's it. Fine. Now you got it. It says that there is no docker images that are available. Fine. Now let's see. Now if you see, it got pushed. Now go to our Docker Hub, go to tags. Now you could see, right, our digest, like it got pushed 2 minutes back. Now copy the Docker image, paste it in. See, it is backend, right? Go to backend. It is frontend. This is backend. I need to push the image into the backend. Fine. Let's wait how much time it takes. Fine. Now directly type docker pull. Now use sudo in front of it. What happened? Okay. Now in backend we can't, as I told you, we can't use. How do you enable it? Sudo systemctl enable docker and sudo systemctl start docker. Now if you do use the same command, now your image is now pulled. If you do docker images now, sudo, wait, it is extracting. It's extracting, let it extract. Now if you do sudo docker images, you'll have your image here. Now how do I run it? Sudo docker run -it -p. We need to enable the port 8080 colon 8080 space -p 3306 colon 3306 -p 80 colon 80 space the repository tan is on slash project backend colon v1. If you do, now you will get inside the docker container. Here you could see root, right? Root, and this is my docker id. Fine. Now I have saved my work at cd home, cd, then ubuntu 3 tier, and if you do ls, you could see everything here. Now how do I run it? The command is maven spring hyphen boot colon run. If you do, your work will be running. Fine, that's it. Your work is running. Now you need to configure your backend also. So in order to configure your backend, go to your instances, go to backend, go to go in the security, go to security groups. Now if you look at the security groups, you need to go to inbound rules, and here go for traffic, click on anywhere and save the rules. Fine. Now the outbound rules are also done in the backend. Fine. In the backend. Fine. The backend is working fine. Now the backend is also now configured. Fine. The backend is also configured. Backend is also configured. Now we are left with DB, right? We are left with frontend. We are left with frontend part. Now, in order to have frontend part, go to now create a new Docker image. Create a new Docker image. We'll be taking base OS and doing all the operations in the front end, and we'll be repeating the same thing as to save it, save the container as an image, and now then we deploy it in our server. Fine. So how do we do this? First go to your Docker hub, Docker application. Now use something like docker run -it -p. We need to open the port 4200 colon 4200. The name will be Ubuntu. The image name is Ubuntu. Then a new Docker container is now created. You could see the Docker container ID is 301C and so on. So now we need to get into something like, we need to clone it, right? Now let's see, Git is available, Git's not available. So how do we install Git? Before installing it, we need to update the package sudo apt update. So now all our packages get updated. After the package got updated, we need to use something like apt install git. Now the git is installed. Now git will be installed. Fine. After git is installed, you need to clone my repository. Go to my repository. Here there is a file called as 3-tier frontend. There, copy my repository link, come to Docker, come to your Docker. Now go to cd home Ubuntu, there clone it, git clone and the repository and paste it. It will clone the repository. If you do ls, it says 3 tier. Go to 3 tier, ls, you'll have all the things. Now go to, now even this is also done, but my application is on Angular. Until and unless I don't have Angular, I couldn't do anything. So we need to install Angular. So in order to install Angular, I have given few commands, that is curl. But until and you, curl is a command in order to get your repositories, but curl is also not found. How do we install curl? Apt install curl. This command will install curl in the Docker also. Now even curl is installed. Now copy it and paste it. Now this is also done. Now nvm is a package manager. Now we are getting node installed in it. One second. Yeah, it says nvm. So as you could see, until and unless we don't source it, source dot bash rc, nvm won't work. Now type this nvm install. Now nvm will get installed. So nvm is installing node version 18.20.7. Now after installing node, we need to install Angular, right? I have even gave the link to install Angular. So Angular is available at this, like npm install -g @angular CLI. Paste it and run it. Now it will install Angular. Now after even Angular is done, we need to directly run the server. In order to run the server, this is the code. So once the Angular is installed completely, see, Angular is now installed, right? If you do ls, you will see packages. In order to install packages, npm install. That's it. It will install all the packages that are available. It will take some time. It will install all the packages that are available. So it will take some time. So let us check. Okay, now it got 35 vulnerabilities. Now you could use npm audit fix. It will fix the audits that are available. One second, audid audit, right? Now it will fix the vulnerabilities that are there with it. Now after fixing the order, now after fixing it, we could directly run it and check whether it's available or not. I think we still get some vulnerabilities, but those are not that much. They could be ignored. let it run. Now it got 8 vulnerabilities, it's fine. Now how do you run it? ng serve and run it. Now it will compile. If the compilation gets successful, that means our application will be running. Let's see. It is in the setup mode. It will take some time building it. So let's wait for some time. Sealing, emitting, yeah. Now you could see the compilation got successful. Now as we are in Docker, right? Now you could even use this address and open it in your local system. You could see Angular. Fine. Now here we didn't configure our front end, like we didn't configure our front end with the backend, right? So we need to configure our front end with the backend, right? Until and unless we don't configure our front end with the backend, we are not going to do anything, right? So this is fine. Control C to get out of it. Now go to, if you do ls, now go to src. In src, go for src, go to apps, app in src. One second. Okay, now thing is that we need to go to app itself. Do we have app here? ls, we don't have, we do have app, right? cd app. In app we need to get inside one second. Users dot services SCRVI service dot ts. Okay, use vi here. Vi users dot service dot ts. Now if you see vi command not found, you need to install it by saying apt install vim. Now it will install vim. It will take some time. Vim is now installed. Let's see. vi will be installed. Done. Vim is now installed. You choose your location as Asia as 544 as your time zone. Now done. vi users dot services dot ts. Now here you could see the backend, right? The base URL of the backend. Fine. The base URL of the backend is your EC2 instance. The backend EC2 instance. Now if you go to EC2, now the backend, go to details, give your public IPv4 DNS. If you give your public IPv4 DNS, that will work. So go to our Docker. Where is our Docker? So until and unless you won't press I, it won't work. So we'll go back. Now we'll paste it after http colon and save it. How do we save it? Escape colon wq exclamation and enter. Now we have configured the front end with backend, but we didn't set this to our server, right? How do we get cd ///// now ls? If you go into cd3 tier, now how do you run it? We do have the command ngserve, it will run. Now we have configured our front end, backend, db, but the deployment of the front end to server is just left. How do we deploy it? Using docker images, docker container, right? How do we get out of docker? Control pq. We got it. Now how do we commit it? Docker commit the commit id that we have. What is the commit id? This is the commit id that we do have. Copy it. One second. Okay. Copy it. Paste it. Right? As I told you, until and unless you won't create your repository, it can't be saved. Now go to Google Chrome, open your repository, and I'm creating a new repository for it. New repository. I'm creating a new repository. Project proj frontend and create. It will create a new repository. So in tags it will be empty. Fine. Now I need to use commit with tan is on /prjfe colon v1 to save my docker container into an image. Now after converting the container into image, I just need to push it, right? So let's see. Let's wait for it. This is local host. Until and unless, if you want local host, in the sense only the people, only you can access it. If you want it to be accessed by the whole world, it should be deployed in the server. Okay, so let's see. Did it got? One second. It is still committing. Let's wait for a few seconds. Now our server is also, our backend is also running fine. Now if you do, I need to push it, right? Still did get committed. Let's wait. Might be the image size is okay. Now it got committed, right? Now how do you push it? Docker push your username followed by your repository prjfe colon followed by your tag. Now it won't push. I think we need to give sudo. If I give sudo, then it will push. It will take some time to push. Might be the image is too large. Now let's look what we have did. So on the overview basis, now we took a DB, configured the DB. DB has three things. It does have its endpoint, its username, its password. Fine. In the backend, in the backend, in order to connect the backend to DB, we did use all these configurations in our backend part in the application something like in the path something like 3-tier backend. In backend source, main, resources, there you had a file called as application.resources. There we have entered all the details of it. Now in the front end part, there, in order to connect your front end with the back end, we do have a path something like 3-tier front end. In front end we had source. In source we have app. In app we had user dot service dot ts. Here ts means TypeScript. The language used in the front end is Angular, which works with TypeScript. So there we gave our backend configuration. Now you have a look. Front end is now connected with backend. Now backend is now connected with DB. So all are interconnected. Fine. Okay. Now let's see. The image got pushed. It's about to end. So now let us check it. The image is pushing. It's okay. So this is our application that is working fine. Okay. After this, how do we generally access our page? We access it with its IP address, right? And as we know, front end is running with the port 4200. We need to enable the port of 4200 of this instance, right? How do we enable? In inbound rules. So we'll go to our instance, we'll select our front end. In front end we'll choose a security. In the security groups we'll edit the inbound rules. In inbound rules we'll add a rule. You could give custom TCP at 4200 and custom for everywhere, but in my case I'm giving all traffic. And if I save the rules, the inbound rule for the front end will be now changed. Now go back. Yeah, it got pushed. Now if you look at your Docker Hub, in the project front end, in the tags you could see project front end. One second. Do I have to? One second. PROJ project front end. One second. Okay, might be. Okay, PROJ. Go to tags. Now you could see, you could copy it. Now in the server you paste it. In the server of front end you paste it. Sudo and paste it. Now it will pull the image. The work that is done will be pulled. Have a look. The images are extracting. So even the inbound rules are done. The front end part is also done. If you go to instances, the front end details, the public IP address is this. Copy it and paste it, followed by :4200. It will show. It doesn't show anything. Fine. But if you run it, how do you run it? Docker run -it. I need to enable the port 4200. colon 4200. Fine. Tan is on slash prjfe colon v1. 1 second. Run it with sudo. Now you are into this. We have stored our work at cd slash home slash ubuntu. Here in this part we need to get into 3 tier, right? So cd 3 tier. Now directly copy the command that we had to run the server. This is the command. Copy it. Now paste it. Now the server will run. Let's have a look. It is in the setup mode. If we get the compilation successful, yeah, now we got the compilation successful. Now refresh the page. 1 second. Go to our instance, copy it, paste it, the colon 4200, details, and if you press this, you could see our Angular front end running. Fine. We don't have any data here. Fine. Now if you create a data, my first name is Tanishq, my last name is Bandari, and I am giving some random like Bandari Tanishq @example.com, and if I create it, if I check in my users, now let's see, are anything getting catched? It says JDBC error. JDBC error comes only if JDBC comes with the database connectivity. Let's have a look. Now let's try to create a user. I'm giving some random data, something like this. If you try to create a user, the user is not getting created. If you see the backend logs says that JDBC stands for Java database connectivity. It says that there is an error with database connectivity. Now Control C, exit it. Now go to CD. That means that there is an issue with the backend and the database problem. So cd src main resources. Now last time we got problem with VI, so we are using nano editor. Nano editor is similar to VI editor. We are going applications.properties and we enter it to it. Now here you could see we didn't give this part, localhost colon 3306 and so on. So directly copy it, move your cursor there, move your cursor to the last one, directly paste it. Here we don't need to enter into insert mode or some other modes. It is simple, but in order to save it you need to use Control O. Control O means write out, Control O, and file name to write. This is our file name, right? Press enter. And if you want to get out, Control X. Fine, that's it. cd // // Now how do you run it? mvn spring -boot :run. Now this is running, the application is running. Fine. Now go to Angular. Now create a user with some random data. Now click on create. Now you could see, right, our query got executed. We have now created it. Now how do we check it? Is it now created in the database? You could directly use dbeaver, right? dbeaver. Now select star from users, run it, and now you could see our DB has stored this data also. Now if you create a new user, something like this, and create it, see ID number 3 Alice and so on. Now run this query, see even this got created. Now did you understand what does 3-tier application means? So if you have any doubts, queries, please ask me. This is about our project. And before leaving the class, please delete your instances. So how do you delete your instances or your databases? Go to databases, then opt your database, click on actions, click on delete, untick this create final snapshot and click on I acknowledge and type delete me and delete it. Now your database will be deleted. Now go to EC2. Now go to our EC2 services. Going to EC2, go to instances. After going to instances, select here both of the servers, frontend and backend. Now you could see the logs that the query got initiated. Okay, before that, how do we delete it? Select all the instances, go to instance state, terminate those instances. Now click on terminate delete if you want to delete your project. Fine. Click on terminate, your instances will be deleted now. If you refresh it, they'll be deleted. Wait, they're shutting down. That's it. This is our project, guys.